Trump supporters are losing their minds over Zohran Mamdani dancing after the New York Knicks won Game 1 of their playoff series. Meanwhile, they cheer for this. What's wrong with these people?
Something I don't think is being talked about enough right now is that there is a special sense of rage proliferating amongst defecting children of MAGA families. And that is because if you grew up in that environment, you almost certainly grew up listening to the lore of the origin of America and the importance of freedoms in conjunction with the importance of fighting off tyranny. And then you watch the same people that beat those lessons into your head hand us over to the very boogeyman that they were screaming about, who then insulted and derided you for fighting back against the very thing that they taught you to feel. And they did those things by insulting our intelligence, slinging around infantile nicknames, and generally just dismissing anything that we could possibly say as being invalid and unimportant because we were too young and too naive to understand.
The audacity of this is what gets me. You spend an entire childhood drilling freedom and anti-tyranny into a kid's head, and then the moment they actually use those lessons, you dismiss them as naive. That's not parenting, that's programming and getting mad when the program runs correctly. The whole "you're too young to understand" line is just a way of saying our principles only apply when we decide they apply. And young people from conservative households are done with that double standard. They learned the rules, they're playing by the rules, and now the rule makers are moving the goalposts in real time. That betrayal cuts deeper than any political disagreement ever could.
And this is why we're saying that Fox News did to you what you said video games would do to us.
Chaos continues to erupt in New York City, and the fans are getting more furious by the minute as they see the effects of Donald Trump going to attend Game 3 of the NBA Finals at Madison Square Garden tonight. The NYPD announced earlier that there was going to be no walking allowed in the heart of Midtown Manhattan starting at 4 p.m. Eastern due to tonight's Knicks game, aka due to Donald Trump's presence at the Knicks game. And we're already seeing footage like this of streets around Madison Square Garden starting to be walled off to pedestrian traffic. They've also put up this big security wall around MSG, as we said at Midas Touch. Well, Trump finally built his wall. And there is this massive area that they're blocking off. They're blocking off from West 30th Street to West 35th Street between 6th Avenue and 8th Avenue. And just to show you what that looks like visually, it's right here, and you can see that people like this individual are not happy about it. I mean, this is one of the biggest nights of the year in New York City, possibly in decades. Nights that these businesses in that area have been relying on. This could be worth millions and millions of dollars to the businesses in the area. Now they're going to be receiving a lot less traffic because Donald Trump wants to attend a game. And a lot of people have been wondering, where is Trump going to sit when he goes to the Knicks game? Well, he's going to be sitting up in the owner's box with Knicks owner James Dolan, not courtside or anywhere near the fans like Mayor Mamdani. And the one message I want to send to my friends in New York is you got to understand the assignment tonight. I want people to be hearing those boos out in Massachusetts from Madison Square Garden. Hey, if you like these video updates, remember to add the Midas Touch podcast right now on Apple Podcasts or Spotify and leave a 5-star review if you can. Spread the word, and we'll be back soon for more.
Conservatives are mad about the declining birth rate as if they didn't tell us to keep our legs closed. As if they didn't tell us that pregnancy is a consequence of having sex. As if they didn't overturn Roe v. Wade and tell us to keep our legs closed. If you're worried about the declining birth rate, why are you telling women to stop having babies? Like, you can't have it both ways. The declining birth rate is something.
Pick a lane, that's all I'm saying. You cannot ban abortion, shame women for having sex, and panic about declining birth rates simultaneously. The logic just doesn't connect, and she's making a point that actually gets overlooked in this debate. Declining birth rates can mean women have options. That's not a crisis, that's progress. But when your whole political identity is just reacting against whatever the other side does, you end up contradicting yourself every single week and hoping nobody notices.
To celebrate, because it is an indicator of bodily autonomy. It is a huge win for bodily autonomy when women and birthing people can choose when and where and how they're going to have children, even if they don't have the protections of Roe v. Wade, even if they are just having to abstain. This is a huge win. Shout out to every single man who has ever said that to a liberal woman. Keep your legs closed when we're talking about an abortion debate. Because I know I got a ton of those comments on my videos.
Oh my God, they know. And they know they can't stop it. I've known this was coming for 10 years, but until now I didn't realize there was a name for it. It's the thing that makes us say, is it just me or are there more crazies than ever before? The Trump spike in racism, sexism, and hate, it's the emotional foundation for the entire Make America Great Again movement. That nostalgia for when life in America was simpler and paler. But as soon as we began addressing it, boom. Extinction burst. This term is why I love science so much. You can take an idea from one field, like psychology, for example, and apply it to another field, like political science, and the principles still apply. Extinction burst is actually really simple. It's when you have a behavior and a reward.
US News won't show you this, but I will. This is from a weekly French news magazine, Le Point. The title says, "The Man from Moscow." Below that, the subheadline states, "Putin and Trump, the alliance of predators." It's also important to note that this news magazine has a reputation for being center-right. This is a magazine that tends to support conservative values. In this article, the author goes on to compare Donald Trump's presidency to a geopolitical earthquake, even comparing it to the fall of the Berlin Wall in 1989. And the author makes a pretty strong stance that Europe as a whole can no longer rely on the United States for security and stability. It then compares the United States' proposed offer of more continued support in exchange for valuable minerals from Ukraine as financial extortion. The article makes it clear you can still believe in self-reliance and strong defense without blindly following one dangerous leader. Even European conservatives are...
Let's sit with what she just said for a second. This is a center-right European magazine, not some progressive outlet. And they're comparing this geopolitical moment to the fall of the Berlin Wall. They're calling the minerals deal with Ukraine financial extortion. And they're explicitly saying Europe can no longer rely on America for security and stability. These are conservatives saying this, ideological allies, people who were supposed to be on the same team, when even your own side across the ocean is publicly distancing themselves and writing cover stories about it. That's not media bias. That's just the international community documenting what they're actually observing. And the fact that US News largely won't show you this is honestly its own story. The world is having a very loud conversation about America, and America isn't even listening to it.
Pushing for independence while still calling out this dangerous alignment between Donald Trump and Putin.
MAGA are not happy. I was just reading an interesting article on theguardian.com where they say Trump faces backlash of MAGA faithful over plan to accept plane gift from Qatar. They're basically saying that some of his most devoted supporters, MAGA supporters, are speaking out against Trump accepting the $400 million luxury jet from that's going to be the new Air Force One. A bunch of MAGA superstars are saying things like, this is not draining the swamp. Ben Shapiro, the prominent right-wing commentator, led the charge on his daily podcast, saying President Trump promised to drain the swamp. This is not, in fact, draining the swamp, he said. And are you ready for this one? Laura Loomer, right, the far-right MAGA activist, she warned that the proposed gift would put such a stain on the administration. She even said, I love Trump, I'd even take a bullet for him. But I have to call a spade a spade. We cannot accept a $400 million gift from jihadists in suits. Ouch! So there you go. His numbers are way down anyway. Everybody is just not happy with this guy. And now MAGA is turning on Trump. We told you so.
Would you vote? Laura Loomer said jihadis in suits, and I felt that, honestly, when the most loyal voices in a movement start using language like that about their own leader, something fundamental has shifted. This isn't random critics piling on. These are true believers hitting a wall. And Ben Shapiro calling it out on his own podcast is significant because that platform doesn't do that lightly. The swamp didn't get drained. It got renovated with a $400 million jet and leather seats. But here's what I keep coming back to. Principles should never be personal. If draining the swamp was the point, then it applies to everyone. Full stop, no exceptions.
For someone that's been held legally responsible for sexual abuse?
That wasn't a fair conviction at all.
What was unfair about it?
It was completely inaccurate. The area where They held it in Manhattan. There's very few Trump supporters there. He wasn't found liable by a jury of his peers.
It was a jury of his peers. There were 9 jurors, 7 men and 2 women. The lawyers actually select the jury.
Yeah, so
did Trump hire bad lawyers?
No, if there's not very many good ones to pick from, what are they going to do?
So you think all the jurors in selection are bad?
I didn't say that. Don't put words in my mouth.
No, but is that what you believe?
I didn't say that.
But is that what you believe?
I didn't say that. I'm done with you. I think that you're trying to push an agenda, which I don't agree with.
What agenda do you think that is?
The other side.
So something that you disagree with?
The other side.
So do you not want to interact with people you disagree with?
Because it's a losing game.
A losing game if you interact with people who disagree with you?
Take a listen to how Trump's own voters are describing their own emotions right now on right-wing political call-in shows.
I feel really betrayed, and I feel really, really angry. We have a president who tells us to move on from Epstein because it doesn't matter. Are you guys still talking about this seriously? And yet he still talks about the 2020 election fraud. He talks about the Hunter Biden laptop. He talks about all this stuff from 5-6 years ago, and he tells us to move on from the Epstein trial or the Epstein case. People like me will not stop talking about this. I feel so betrayed and so angry. This is not what I voted for.
I'm concerned about being able to trust Donald Trump to keep his word.
There's something genuinely painful about listening to that caller because you can hear it's not performance, it's actual hurt. He's describing being promised transparency, being promised accountability, and then being told to move on and stop asking questions, while simultaneously watching 5-year-old grievances get relitigated on a daily basis. That double standard is the very definition of gaslighting, and he named it correctly. Here's the uncomfortable truth, though. When you build a movement around a person instead of actual principles, you always end up here, because people change their positions based on convenience. Principles don't. This is what political loyalty without ideological grounding produces every single time. And these voters are learning that lesson live on air right now.
In his campaign, he said he was going to let us know all of the facts about this. And now he's saying, go away, don't pay attention to it.
These Epstein files, we were told that there was going to be released. There was this client list that was going to be released. And the fact that it's suddenly gone away and he's trying to gaslight us is like a punch in the gut to MAGA.
Why are you mad at Trump right now?
I think this war is a disaster. Disaster. The 3 pillars of the Trump campaign, both in 2016 and 2020, that set him apart from every other Republican and every other Democrat. I mean, for the first time, this is the basket of issues I wanted to vote on. Number 1, the wall, deport illegals, the whole immigration program. Number 2, bring back manufacturing, the tariff stuff. I'm all in favor of that. Our working class in America has been absolutely wiped out. I don't think we need a lot of schlock from China. Why are we building them up? I mean, I think a lot of it has to do with labor unions, but solve the problem of labor unions. Don't just outsource everything we make, either by bringing them here to work cheap, or by having it done over there. And the 3rd pillar was no more pointless wars.
Oh my God, they know. And they know they can't stop it. I've known this was coming for 10 years, but until now I didn't realize there was a name for it. It's the thing that makes us say, is it just me or are there more crazies than ever before? The Trump spike in racism, sexism, and hate. It's the emotional foundation for the entire Make America Great Again movement. That nostalgia for when life in America was simpler and paler. But as soon as we began addressing it, boom. Extinction burst. This term is why I love science so much. You can take an idea from one field, like psychology, for example, and apply it to another field, like political science, and the principles still apply. Extinction burst is actually really simple. It's when you have a behavior and a reward, and you withdraw the reward in order to change the behavior. When you do that, usually to change an undesirable behavior, the behavior itself increases in frequency and intensity for a short period of time, till ultimately the subject changes the behavior, and then that behavior goes extinct. This is like you're at the store and you're swiping your credit card and it doesn't work, and so then you swipe your credit card like 15 more times until you're so angry you're freaking out and you're about to scream an F-bomb in the middle of Toys R Us, and then you say, I'll just pay with cash. The swiping is the behavior and the payment is the reward. So when the swiping doesn't work and you don't get the reward you need, you get madder and madder and you try it more and more until you change the behavior, which then results in the extinction of the original behavior. Now, extinction burst at the national level is much slower, but in this case, we actually know.
Extinction burst, genuinely one of the most useful frameworks I've heard applied to politics, and the credit card analogy makes it click immediately. The card stops working. You don't accept it. You swipe harder. You escalate. You get furious. And then eventually you change the behavior. What he's describing is that the entire escalation we've watched over the last decade, the Tea Party, the birthers, all of it, isn't a sign that the other side is winning. It's a sign that the old behavior is dying. That's genuinely hopeful if you zoom out far enough. Intensity isn't strength. Sometimes intensity is just the last gasp before something changes for good.
Know very clearly what triggered it. It was Obama's election in 2008. Sarah Palin, the Tea Party movement, the birther movement, and ultimately MAGA. It is a 10-year tsunami of rage in the face of inevitable extinction. This is why Republicans are still so angry. They know Trump winning can't stop it, and they know Trump in office can't stop it. They can feel the inevitable extinction of their own terrible beliefs. At this point, the only thing that'll stop it is if we let up. If you stop interfering with that undesirable behavior, it will go back to normal. So no, you're not crazy. Yes, you are doing the right thing. And yes, if you persevere, the extinction burst will end.
I just saw a creator say that the reason conservatives are so mad that liberals are kicking them out of their spaces is because now they have to be with other conservatives 24/7. And baby, good golly gee, that is the take. That is absolutely 100% correct. They don't want to be around each other all the time because it's miserable over there. The fun is over here. Do you know what's fun? Eras Tour. Do you know what's fun? Broadway, giggling, twerking, kikiing, making friendship bracelets with your besties. That's fun. But what do they have that's fun? It quite simply isn't fun to hate people all the time. To be clear, they want to hate. They do want to hate. They just don't want to hate 24/7. They want to take a break from hating sometimes to come over here and laugh and kiki and giggle it up and have a good time. But baby, you made your choice. Okay, so now you've just got to be filled with hate 24/7. And those are your full-time people. The racists, the bigots, those are your full-time folks. And you may hate it there, but I love that for you.
When the Constitution was adopted, they weren't worried about the...
He's onto something that rarely gets said this directly. The reason certain people kept inserting themselves into spaces that clearly didn't want them is because deep down they knew that's where the joy was. Eras Tour, Broadway, just people laughing and being present with each other. You can't manufacture that atmosphere on a foundation of constant grievance. Misery needs company, but it doesn't make for great company. And now that boundaries are actually being enforced, suddenly the self-imposed exile feels a lot less heroic and a lot more lonely. That's not a punishment. That's just consequence.
British coming over again. They all these checks and balances, the separation of powers, the two-layer federalism, the central government, and then all the state governments. And then at the national government, you had the legislative and the executive and the judicial. And then the legislative is broken up into two houses. It's a bicameral system. They're spreading the power as thinly as they can. And they're doing it not because the British might come over and become tyrannical again. They did all this because they knew that the Americans could become tyrannical again. And this is why this is one of my favorite pet peeve arguments. And some conservatives in recent last decade or so have wanted to emphasize American exceptionalism. And then they talk about American exceptionalism. But if you look at the history of empires, there was Babylonian exceptionalism, there was Persian exceptionalism, there was British exceptionalism. It's the easiest thing in the world for a superpower at the top of its game to say we're number one. But when the founders were looking at the prospect of becoming a great and prosperous nation, which they were very aware of was happening, Thomas Jefferson particularly, they were very aware that if we get to the Pacific, this is going to be a juggernaut, this is going to be a thing. At that moment, they said in the Constitution, we can't give anybody in the American government too much power. They recognized, the founders recognized that Americans were not exceptional at all. And that's exceptional.
That's a really powerful statement, that, what you've just said. Yeah.
Here are a list of words I found American Republicans immediately get triggered by. Democrat, socialism, gay, LGBT, QIA, plus, anything non-Christian, women in positions of power, women in general, pronouns, equality.
US News won't show you this, but I will. For the first time ever, more countries around the world viewed the US negatively than positively. Want to guess why? The 2025 Democracy Perception Index surveyed over 110,000 people in 100 different countries, and the results are not great for the US. America's global image has collapsed. In fact, even China is viewed more positively than the United States around the world. The US dropped from 22% approval rating last year to -5% this year. According to this index, Donald Trump is the least liked public figure. Only 27% of the people polled view him positively, even ranking below Vladimir Putin. And when asked why, former NATO Secretary General said, "It's no surprise that opinions have slipped, even among people like me who have spent their lives admiring the United States and what it stood for." He then went on to say that America's credibility is collapsing, and the reason is Donald Trump. He cited Trump's trade wars, bullying allies, engaging in, quote, chaotic diplomacy. And he's right. Sadly, the U.S. is no longer the democratic model to follow. What do you guys think?